Isn't that an annoying voice?
It's really annoying. It'd be much better if it was an English lady saying, recording is in progress.
So we're live, Dawn, in my group. I appreciate you coming on. So just a brief introduction. I know Dawn through the Quest Institute. We both studied at the Quest Institute. Mine was 5 years ago. How long ago did you do it?
I was Q37 and you're Q39, were
Right,
you?
yeah.
So I was 2 years ahead of you.
Yeah,
2000 and I don't know where all my certificates are.
Yeah, so you know, my posh office, which I was just showing you, they're hung up somewhere.
Yeah. And the decorating is amazing. Yeah, it's pristine, isn't it?
For a green screen, it's brilliant. So yeah, we're cognitive hypnotherapists, and it's probably a bit weird to some of my group. You know, I'm a painter and decorator, but I do it part-time. But what I've realized is there's more better people at doing it, like yourself, than what I was at doing it. But you've kindly come on. I've explained a little bit about my group and how being a tradesman, being a painter can be stressful, you know, really, really stressful with running a job. In the back of your mind, you've got to look at jobs, you've got to invoice, you've got to quote, you've got your family life, working weekends. And, you know, if you analyze it all, your brain can just bloody go crazy, you know. So yeah, I've introduced you in the group earlier in the week and said you're going to come on, talk about stress a little bit and how to not just manage it, but look at it differently. And just before we continue, I've got Susan just waiting to come in. 2 seconds. So yeah, so I appreciate you coming on, Dawn. We were saying beforehand, you know, what sort of format, and I said, oh, we'll just wing it, you know, we'll chat and see how it goes.
So hello, Susan. And I've said, we were chatting earlier, weren't we? And you sort of saying some people don't want to sort of come on the Zoom, but maybe on the Facebook. However, you know, you don't have to show your face on Zoom. You can keep your camera off. Unlike some of the Zoom things that I do, where you have to have your camera on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you know, sometimes if you're struggling or whatever, it can be difficult to speak out aloud in front of a group of strangers. Although we're quite a close knit, you know, group, but. Yeah, I get it, but we're streaming in the group, and I'm going to keep looking down, and if anybody's got any questions as we're talking, I'll highlight them to you. So yeah, how can you help us, Dawn? I'm stressed out, too much going on.
And you were saying about all of that, doing all of that, and I had an image of I like my bacon really crispy. So when I have bacon, which isn't often, but I like it really crispy, like burnt. And you know how it shrivels up to like, and I've seen like this frazzled bacon. I thought, oh my God, I'm worn out already. I need to go and have a lie down. You really do. But first of all, I just a quick overview of actually my life and where I think I'm probably appropriate to actually speak in the group. I'm not a painter and decorator. However, my father was a tradesman. Yeah. In fact, you'll see, like, if anybody, I don't know how well you can see this, but I've got hundreds of like cards. I've got tarot cards and oracle cards and all sorts behind me. But yeah, that wasn't my background. But my father was a carpenter, shop fitter and cabinet maker. So I was born into the trades. His father was a carpenter, and I don't know what, carpenter and shop fitter or something, but his father had his own business in Tottenham. That's where my father came from, and he taught in the army in the 1940s, and he was like 18, 19, but very uneducated, as in he couldn't read and write. Very clever man, but couldn't. So I grew up with a man who most of his life had worked for himself, had his own business. Sometimes he had staff. He had, you know, people working with him, young apprentices. Always had a fag behind one ear, a pencil behind the other, and a fag in his mouth. I think they were like the Piccadilly, you know, the non-filtered ones in the days when you could smoke always. And a flat cap. He had a flat cap, which takes me back. I then, as I've moved forward, my last boyfriend was a bricklayer, trained in, he was still at college at St Albans College, so proper, you've got his sitting guilds. I was working, and Yeah, my dates were, that is, you name all the different kinds of brickwork, that's yeah, the arches and how you do the arches, and this is a good picture. If they, all the lines explained that they had to go down the line. So yeah, that was my, and again, he went on and had his own business. I don't know if he's still going, he's in Wigginton, so he was based in Wigginton. And my husband I have now, I only have one husband, only ever had one husband, and he's an electrician and always been self-employed. So from the trades point of view, I've lived trades on, you know, not myself. I trained in Berkhamsted actually as a hairdresser, and have been, I still to this day do a little bit of hairdressing, or a little bit actually. I spend Mondays and Tuesdays doing hairdressing. There's the times hypnotherapy or some forms of therapy, and so I appreciate what it's like to be self-employed. Again, most of my life I've been more self-employed. Time is money. If you walk away and have a lunch break and doing your own books, I now invest in a bookkeeper. Cost me £41 a month to have somebody do my books. She's got zero. I send my receipts into her. Easy, easy, easy. One hell of a worry off my shoulders, because I do know and have seen it. In fact, my own father, you know, I can remember as a child sitting, we were looking out the window having our lunch, and suddenly the car, we had a little blue Fiat, he bought it from new, was being picked up and towed away, and it was all to do with his accountant. It didn't, as far as I remember, it didn't actually get towed away, but that they were literally putting it on the ramp to tow it away, and that was to do with his accountant. So, you know, and I've seen some stuff if you don't get your accounts right.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about me. So yeah, self-employed, it's not easy. And what made a big difference for me in myself was when I went to a meetup, and it was the Three Principles meeting. So that was the thing that really made a big change in my thinking mind. Obviously before that, there was nothing obvious about that. I joined Quest when I finished. I was teaching at the Milton Keynes College, teaching hairdressing, left there and went straight into NLP, hypnotherapy, timeline, and then on to Quest, of which I don't think anybody can, everybody that we've trained with or we've met throughout all the different things have probably all said the same. You cannot beat Trevor's training, which is neuro-linguistic programming and clinical hypnotherapy, and many other things within that, isn't it? And it's the difference that makes a difference. I think that's what Trevor says, it's the difference that makes the difference.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about my background there, and where I think that I can actually have some empathy with people who are self-employed, and particularly in the men and women in trades. You're having to put food on the table and take on everything, and don't we just think that we've got to do it all. So just moving forward, but before I go on, is there anything anybody is that kind of a pause time, or take a sip of water? While I'm there, and I'll just sort of share that I'm not completely alcohol free, but I choose to be AF. And that's due to my own background of using alcohol and being an abuser of alcohol to cope.
So just a few people watching: Susan, Jen, Nikki, can't beat burnt bacon. Yeah, I agree. Susan saying plate spinning, you know, like you've just said. It's what can be difficult being self-employed, for sure. So I was interested about your subsequent training after Quest, and you know how I'm really interested, like, you know, with Quest, how our brain works, how we're programmed, how we're 90% running on autopilot. You know, it's our subconscious brain which is running the show, basically. You know, we're very rarely kind of present, although we believe we are. You know, it's all these programs installed from childhood and, you know, our younger years and stuff like that. So we just kind of get in a bit of a rut as to how we're running our day from when we get up. You know, we see the same stuff every day. You know, our mind plays a kind of movie. You know, we see something, it traces it back to something in our past, and then it predicts our future. And it's just, you know, a wonderful machine, but at the same time, it's got faults. And you know, I'm just interested to hear how, you know,
say no shit, Sherlock.
yeah, how, you know, my part, what I you know, I used to suffer anxiety, and that's why I had to see a hypnotherapist. And it wasn't all sort of, you know, watch my bloody watch and all that stuff. You know, it was just in a short space of time, I was able to see stuff differently and understand how my brain worked, and just that insight alone was enough to kind of change me. So I'm just, yeah, interested to hear how, you know, just by looking at stuff differently, knowing that, you know, we're all okay, you know, there's nothing wrong with us. It's just our brain believing it's doing a correct job for us, but it gets it wrong sometimes. And you know, when I spoke to John a few weeks back, it brought me back to the training I had and reminded myself how stuff I'd almost forgotten, you know, and it made me feel better at the end of it. So yeah, just interested to hear your take on it, on kind of stress and what our brain's actually doing, you know.
Because we learn. Well, I mean, I've got, again, I don't know if, can you see, I've got like folders behind on this, and some of them are like 2 or 3 of them are quest folders, and they're jam packed of all the stuff we learn. And I've done 2 master packs, one with Trevor and one with Edge NLP, which actually is local. That she's now in Amersham, Pip. But yeah, I always ask, who do you think's driving the bus? Because it ain't you. And you know, that's those beliefs. I call it the ego brain, the ego side. And an ego, Wayne Dyer says, edged God out. Depends on where you want to be with that one. You know, I respect anyone's views on that, but we've got our higher self. There's something, isn't there, that when you just quieten your mind, and when we're actually working with a client, what we're doing is just quietening that mind, isn't it? Whether we're doing hypnotherapy or whether we're just having a conversation, we're just allowing whatever we're talking about. We could, talk a lot of metaphors, don't we?
Yeah.
But the mind, your thinking brain, just starts to slow down, really slow down. And I see this, I have a really visual picture of this in my mind's eye. And I grew up with records, a proper record player, 2 little knobs, the volume and the bass, that was it. And you put on T-Rex or whatever, and it was 45, 33, 45 or 78. And you could speed things up, or you could slow it down. Now they just go and scratch the records. Like, what's that about, really?
Yeah.
But and that's how I see our brain. You've got the different levels of how fast the brain is like going around, how many hertz, how many the speed of it to create where we are in our thinking state. But when you just really slow it down to 33 RPM, something else comes up. For me, I call it my heart space. It's like there's something that comes up, and it's coming from a place of love and a really peaceful place. And that for me is my wisdom, or my higher self. It's something that says, are you sure about this, Dawn? Are you sure? Stepping away from that, the ego brain, what the piece that our thinking brain, our ego brain, and I'm pretty certain that Trevor says it along the same kind of lines, is that that part that's the part of us that keeps, that it enables us to stay in habits and beliefs that actually don't serve us, and there's a little bit of us that knows it doesn't serve us. Road rage, for example. You go into road rage. Why did I do that? I know it doesn't serve me. I know. But every time that somebody just pulls in front of me, I find myself just blasting up. And the ego state just keeps us in a place that says, Dawn, if you have another drink, if you have another drink, then that's just going to stop you from thinking. And you don't have to think those thoughts that make you think that, you know, you've got to do it all, you've got to have it all, you've got to be it all. You know, I thought I had to be everything, the mother, the father, the husband, the wife, everything. And I had to provide everything. I had to put the roof over our heads, food on the table, as well as be the wife and a mother. That was mine. And I just felt really, really unloved. So every time I had a drink, of course, that stopped my thinking. And that's my ego saying, just have another drink, because then it'll just relax you a little bit, so you won't have that thinking. Or
it's like the whole sort of pleasure, pain, isn't it? So, you know, that's the design of our, you know, our subconscious, unconscious, whatever you want to call it, the part that basically runs us. And, you know, it's to keep us away from pain and towards pleasure. But it, you know, like I said, when it comes to drink, you know, it believes it's giving you pleasure, but in the long term,
causing you a hell of a lot of pain.
You know?
Yeah, a hell of a lot
like,
more pain.
How messed up is it?
Yeah. Because and you know, there's all the chemical stuff that goes alongside that. Okay, so but I'm going to park that and leave that to a different issue. And the same with emotional eating or not eating. You know, the control. If I don't have something to eat, and apparently I've learned recently I've just finished my second past life regression course, and I just love that stuff. Love it. You don't have to believe that you, Gary, lived, you know, in the 1800s, 1500s, 1400s, or caveman or whatever. It's just being open to the idea that actually you may have brought in some kind of memory or some kind of energy, and that we know muscle has memory. We know that muscles have memory. You know, sports people do it, don't they? Use muscle memory to play extra golf, you know, hit the ball, to repeat a move in the same way. Or footballers, muscle memory on how to train the eye to the foot to the goal. Are we doing well in the ladies' football?
Yeah,
everybody. Yeah, and Milton Keynes is at the heart of this. So well done, Milton Keynes. But going on, muscle memory, and to be open to that idea, or be open to the idea that actually every memory, every belief that I have comes from, to start off with, my father, my mother. Two people. Forget the teachers and all the other people that were an influence under the age of 6 or 7. Then I've got 4 people behind that, my grandparents. And then we've got 8 people behind the grandparents, grandparents, and then we've got 16 people. And then, you know, which goes, it blows my mind, because you very quickly get very large how we are all connected in tribes, in our thinking. You know, there'll be maybe 2,000 people that think Boris is wonderful, and there'll be 2,000 people that think Boris is awful, and there'll be 2,000 people standing on the fence. And we possibly all come from the same kind of lineage. That's not a word. I'll park that word. Lineage. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm a
I'm a hairdresser. So,
yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying.
And actually, so those beliefs are not my beliefs.
No,
and yet I truly believe, and you truly believe, and everybody on here, most of us actually truly believe that these are my beliefs based on my life experience. And quite often they're based on somebody else's belief that has become my life experience, and henceforth where I place my focus, what I'm looking at. If I ask if all you guys out there and women out there, I mean guys as being like men and women, but you know, if I'm just going to ask you all to close your eyes for a minute, and please do not, whatever you do not think of a pink elephant. I'd like to just have a hands up. I'd like you to see on how many of you thought of a pink elephant. And wherever you place your focus, wherever, be it I'm waking up and I'm having a really good day today, or do you know what, I've woken up, I'm going to share, I just had a phone call from my son that I wasn't expecting, asking me yet again for money. And I know he's drinking because I know the signs, and yet where he is, he's not allowed to be drinking. And if he gets caught, he'll be thrown out. It's a one-stop shop. He's not going to get a second chance. Now I can choose to focus on that. And the thing is, I recognize it, you know, I can recognize it, or I've just, you know, like, okay, it's not my story. It's not my story. I love him. I accept him unconditionally. Not my story. The more I focus on that, the more it's likely to be a truth. If I just go in the opposite direction and say, I really do like that office behind you, which then I've changed the direction in where I'm looking, and go, actually, that makes me feel good. That thought does not make me feel good. This thought makes me feel good.
It's almost like, you know, I used to, when I see clients, it'd be like, you know, have you ever had it where you want a new car, or, you know, people in group, a new van or whatever, and then suddenly you see it everywhere, you know, so that's in the forefront of your mind. You've never seen it before, and then suddenly these vans or this color car is absolutely everywhere. So in relation to stress, if you kind of, if it's in the forefront of your mind, you're going to find it for sure, aren't you?
Well, remember, I did like stress is a thought. So stress is a thought, or the thinking mind telling a story. And that's what I wrote when I sort of sent a little overview to you. But that just came to me. And stress is just thinking. And what is thought? Thought is formless energy. In fact, there's not one scientist on this earth that has ever found. We know that thought, you know, you get a feeling in the body, that sense. So the spider's over here. I have a thought in my body. My body senses that very quickly goes into the amygdala. The amygdala sets off the fight or flight. Then hippocampus, logical thinking. So hippocampus, all the memories connected to that thought of stress and flight, fight or flight, which is an anxious thought or a stressful thought. But quite often we're thinking about things that would cause us stress in the future rather than what's causing stress in the moment.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, Gary, but throughout my life, when I look back over it, and there's a lot of life to be looked back over now, that actually in the moment I'm not stressed. I can deal with most things in a moment. I've had a couple of car accidents, or more than a couple, and no jokes about the woman driver.
No, you stopped me before I said it.
That's just a belief, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Installed
backed up by evidence.
From my dad. And his granddad.
Absolutely. And those that drove horse and carts.
Yeah.
But in the moment, every time I'm like as cool as a cucumber. In work, I've always been absolutely, I can deal with anything and always do. As soon as it's over, then my body goes into complete that stress mode, that fight and flight. It's like, oh my God, and that absolute panic. But I've already dealt with it. So all of a sudden, my body is reacting to something that it's not happening now. I've gone back to the memory, and actually in my memory, it's very, very different. A little, yeah. And kind of what's that about? Well, it's my thinking. It's like, hope I never have to do that again. Quite often I do, but
it's reminding yourself as well about it all, isn't it? Because, you know, we always fall into a trap, don't we, of being stressed and sort of default mode from, you know, what you were saying is really interesting, because I want you to do a past life regression on me, but just a whole,
and we get that booked in.
Yeah, just the whole stuff that's installed in you before you're 6 or 7. You know, that's what they say. All your beliefs are installed, you know, which is hard to believe because you can't remember much between 0 and 6, you know, and all these beliefs create your identity as an adult. But then sometimes as an adult, like before I sort of got a bit of help and, you know, done my training, you just get that feeling in your stomach that actually this isn't quite me. You know, I'm not this kind of person, or I don't have the same beliefs as my dad or my mum. You know, and you know, as I get older, I realize I'm just a totally different person to them. But some people can you know, it's installed so heavily, it's hard to break it, you know, and it just continues for generations and generations. But I think it's important to, like you say, slow it all down and listen to your body, listen to your mind, trust your gut. You know, it's never, very rarely it's wrong. Trust your gut instincts.
And I love that. I absolutely love that. I was going to say, when you had your therapy, because you saw a cockhipper, or questie. We call ourselves questies, don't we?
Yeah.
And we're in the questie club, and we're all huggy, and it's a great club to be part of.
Yeah.
And we've all gone on to do other trainings as well, and it's part of our CPD, so Trevor encourages it. But what came to my mind, what was the one part of that made the difference, do you think? I have something in my mind, so
what part of my training?
No, of the actual therapy, when you actually went to see your questie.
What was it? She was just, it was so simplistic in how she explained it, you know, like, and subsequently the people I've helped, you know, they've seen therapists for like a year, and they talk about it and talk about it and talk about it, you know, which is absolute crap.
Yeah.
You know, what's talking going to do about it? Just come to the realization it's just a subconscious program running, which was probably installed when you were very, very young, you know. And it's like, I just explained it in a really simplistic manner, and just made them feel like there was nothing wrong with them, you know. The way they were behaving was perfectly natural, you know. It was just their brain believing it was doing a good job. And as soon as they were like, oh, you know, because I'd say, oh, you know, I've had someone with this phobia before, it's so common. They were like, really? And I'm like, yeah, it's very, very common. And straight away they'd feel at ease and like, oh, I'm not weird, or, you know, I can reach out, I can get help. You know, it was just a simplistic way of the way it was explained to me. And, you know, I'm not a massively intelligent guy. You know, with my clients, I just explained it so simple, made them feel like they were normal. You know, like people in the group, you know, leading up to this, talking about stress and that. Well, that's just normal. It's a normal behavior. But if you can understand why you're stressed and how your mind's running away, how you're predicting a future, how you believe tomorrow is going to be like it was today, or perhaps a few days ago. If, like you say, like your analogy of just slowing it down, you know, like an old record player, you can see it for what it is. And that's what.
Do you think everyone in this group will actually know what an old record player looks like?
I'm sure. Yeah.
Although they've seen the decks,
There's
but I'm
loads
sure
of
they know
youngsters
33,
in it.
33, 45 and 78 RPM. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at least we're not as old as 8 tracks or whatever they're called, you know.
My records were with 4 8-tracks. that was it.
I'm just looking at some messages. Daniel, my arm has muscle memory. Great at getting beer to my mouth. Yeah. Same here, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe give it a rest and then do the other arm.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to keep that very clean as well.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the messages. Sharon saying, are you saying your son and his needs are not part of your story, Dawn?
That's an interesting one. It's a really interesting one. My instinct is to go, no, it's not my story. He's 34. No, he's 33. Then my daughter's 34. He's 33 years old. And he's on his own path. I'm a mum. I love him unconditionally. And
I think it's more like if it consumed you, you wouldn't be able to function.
No, I wouldn't. And I just, what came to me was, and the way that I work with clients as well, Dawn's out of the room. Okay, so I can see you as a perfect and whole human being, and he's a perfect and whole human being. He has behaviors that just don't serve him, and it's not his time to make the changes. And he keeps tripping up and making the same mistakes because he's not he just doesn't recognize, I don't have a problem. I'm a binge drinker. I don't have a problem. I can deal with it. He's severely epileptic. And he's been in prison twice for alcohol related offences. If you can't recognize yet, so, but to see him as a whole and perfect human being who has his own story, and it's I wouldn't want him to embody mine either. For him to know that he's loved, and he knows that he's loved by his whole family, but we can't continue to support behaviours that actually destroy us as well as him. We haven't helped him. We've enabled him for a long time. For many years we enabled him, and all of us, that's his sister, his dad, and I'm not going to go around anymore. I've worked on my own guilt, and it's all my fault. And when he doesn't even say, he goes, Mum, both of them, Mum, you've been really good. This is my story.
Somebody I used to know, they had bad sort of drug problem and alcohol and stuff, and part of his process was, his mum and dad were kind of at fault a little bit for enabling it, but it's done from a place of love, because you want your best for your kids, so you will do anything for them. But it's a tricky one.
It is, but don't know, he's not his. I don't let his story be my story. It's not my story, and my story is not his. Does that was it Sharon? Does that make sense to her?
I'll see if she replies.
So so I just see you're not broken, you're a whole and perfect human being. If something breaks, that's my leg. If my leg breaks, I'm gonna go to A&E, and what's the amazing thing, I'll see her. Hopefully I will see a doctor in A&E, and he will get my leg x-rayed or my arm x-rayed, whatever is wrong, and they'll stick a plaster on it. He'll have a plaster cast put on it, and the most miraculous thing happens is my body heals itself. My body is able to heal itself, and it does it all by itself. And we have, as human beings, all these things called emotions, and we work on 5 basic emotions. And Gary, I can never, I'm getting more conflicted, because Steve, that I've just done the training with, he had anxiety as an emotion. So it's anger, guilt, I believe it's sadness, hurt, and now anxiety. We were taught. So going back to that therapy, I just wondered if she did timeline, which is regression, and I find timeline is a really good one to go back to. The first, go back to root cause.
Shall I explain my one briefly, very briefly? So timeline is kind of like you feel emotions like now. So mine was anxiety around, I seem to get it when I was on holiday and stuff, just really like weird anxiety, felt unsettled. A lot of it, I was working too much, never learned to sort of calm down and relax. So when I was on holiday, I was like, my body was like, what, Gary, what are you going to do? What are you going to paint? Because it struggled. But when I've done a timeline, so you sort of go back over your memories and stuff like that. So my current feelings at the time when I got helped, I associated it with feelings in my past. And actually, when I was 7, we went on a family holiday in Spain, and my older brother and sister were supposed to look after me. My mum and dad said, you can go and have a look around. And I got lost. They didn't look after me, and I was gone for hours. I was only a little kid, and I remember it getting dark, trying to cross the road. I was like, shit, where are you? Crying and all the rest of it. And as you can imagine, it made such a bad imprint on my brain. And like we said, your unconscious is here to protect you. So, as far as my brain was concerned, going away and seeing the same sort of sights and smells and everything else was danger, and it unsettled me. And as soon as we done some timeline and changed it and changed the emotions and changed how we looked at it, realized it was back when I was 7, not when I was 40 or whatever it was, it just totally changed it. And we changed the submodalities of it all, which were how your brain computes it, took away the intensity of it, made it into black and white, distanced myself from the event, and talk to my younger self and all that kind of stuff. And it sounds a bit woo woo, but I'll tell you what, it was bloody amazing. And visualize my younger self, you know, going through this trauma, and as an adult telling him, that's all right, Gary, it's all good now. You know, just, you know, I could go on and on about it, but it was just an incredible experience and healed so much trauma, you know, from when I was a little kid. So that was my
Which is just the brain believing that that event is still happening, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was 40 odd, you know, in my early 40s, or you know, whenever I seeked help for it. But it was going on in my, not so much when I was younger, when I was, you know, in my 20s, going away with boys and that, but more sort of as I got older, probably in sort of 30s, you know, it was affecting me more. But yeah, it was just me as a, you know, like we're present now, but I wasn't present. My brain was just going back to a past event. And as soon as we sort of rectified it, good as gold.
Mine was guilt, my most important one, because I'd done a whole load of timeline prior to Quest, and it was awful. But when I did Quest, and it was really quick, but I'd gone to see Katie to find out what Quest was all about, and why should I sign up and you know, applied for an interview, because of course you have to be interviewed to be accepted through Quest, don't you? And she gave me like a hold, well, you've all done all this training for, what you're going to do with it, blah blah blah, but you know, you're going to learn it a lot more in depth, a lot more in depth, which suited me fine. And then invited me back to her office and said, oh, you know, do you want me to do a timeline for you? And it was really quick, because she didn't have to give me the pre-talk, she didn't have to you know, look at my past and my future and so on and so forth, all the other bits. And we just went to guilt. I don't know why it just came up, and I'd had a huge row with my son. He was in the YMCA, the old YMCA in Milton Keynes at the time, and it's a lot better than he was, a hell of a lot better. And I hope that today is not a blip, but that he kind of wakes himself up very quickly from the place that he's in. He was in half an hour ago or whenever, and I went all the way back to 18 months, and I don't know if this happened. And my mum died by that stage, so, and my dad was just so insignificant, Gary, that you'd never ever remember it. But it went back to 18 months, and I'm in the high chair, which breaks down into two, so it was a low high chair, got a table, and my mum, who is the most unmaternal person on the earth. Yeah, so I wasn't even making up a story of, oh well, you know, she was such a maternal woman, of course she would have got this, like, what? And she's trying to feed me, and I didn't want to eat. So my dad comes in, he feeds me, I don't want to eat, and it ends up back with my mum. And then we, you know, the me at that age came down and spoke, and you know, just looked at, you know, my mum was probably just worried. You know, she loved me, I never doubted that, she just wasn't very maternal. And it, you know, children at 18 months, they're teething or whatever, yeah, but they don't always want to eat. And as parents, you know, don't we, like, oh, if they don't eat, they're going to die. They don't eat their all 3 meals, they're going to die. And she was probably just worried, and I honestly can't remember, but all I tell you what, I've never felt guilt since I came out of that. And I was like, oh my God, I've never, the guilt, that emotion of guilt, what I feel now is responsibility. I take ownership and responsibility for my part of something. But yeah, because so often we walk around going, oh, I'm so sorry, oh, I feel so guilty about this, oh, I feel so guilty about that, oh, I didn't do my, you know, I didn't get the children to school, or I didn't get a birthday card for somebody, I feel so guilty. No, I feel responsible. So I forgot somebody's birthday, I'm sorry, here's your belated birthday card. It's end of.
So,
and
just to explain on that, when I saw a client years ago, it just brought something up. So, you know, it is hard to believe that something that happened in the past can affect us in our adult life. And, you know, I know we're talking about loads of stuff here, but it does affect our work and our beliefs around work. So I had a guy, he had a fear of flying. So we'd done a timeline. He went back to when he was a kid, and he witnessed his stepdad, like, literally strangling his brother, and he felt out of control. You know, there was nothing he could do about it. And his current state, when I helped him, you know, all his emotions about fear of flying were exactly matched that particular time when he was totally out of control. And, you know, it's incredible. Like, I'm not saying, you know, day-to-day stress is relating to an incident from childhood, but, you know, the point we're trying to make is all these beliefs and all these perhaps traumas, or there might be, you know, like your one, you know, on the surface, not a trauma as such, is it? But it was just something that was installed. But it's, yeah, just from doing timelines, some weird stuff's come up with clients, and, you know, it's just, sometimes timeline alone has been enough to change. And timeline is just, you know, it's basically an intervention, isn't it? An NLP intervention of how to change your state.
But it's regression. And so it is regression. So if I ask you to go back to last week, I remember when you popped into the shop to go and get you popped into, oh, what is it, what's the company you used to get your you haven't got it on tonight, we've got one over here in Milton Keynes, but that, yeah, the painting place where you get your supplies from.
Not Wix. Supplies are group sponsors, give them a plug.
yeah Who was it?
Colour Supplies.
Colour Supplies. So when you pop into Colour Supplies last week to pick up your paint that you'd ordered, and that's regression. You have to go back in your memory to an event. And you know, the other thing is that every time we go back to an event, we change it anyway. We change it in our memory, don't you? Memory is plastic. Nothing, it's moldable, it's movable. And you know, it is fascinating stuff. But moving on to the stress, which
I'm just going to check the message whilst you move on to that.
Or while you're checking, so stress is also, it's a thought. It's thought is formless energy, and it's our thinking about an event. And what we tend to do is we, based on our brain goes based on the evidence of what happened last week when I popped into Colour Supplies to get the local sponsors of they when I popped into there and I tripped over the coin. That's going to happen if I go out to a future event. Actually, the like, you know, you're prepped to protect yourself from doing that. You're prepped from hitting your head on the low beam. You kind of automatically duck, and they're very simple things. But it's the thinking about this future event based on the brain thinking about back to a past event, be it last week, be it when I was 6, 7, 18 months in the womb. I mean, there's so many things. Kathy Simmons and myself, we did, and Lisa, we did ask and receive training, and so much trauma in birth. So we do ask and receive, which is it's another therapy. It's based on muscle testing, and then age connected to trauma or limiting belief, and then we just say a statement and remove and it's again really, really powerful. Bit woo-woo, but powerful. So much in birth trauma, birth trauma, but it is the brain doing what it does. In scientific terms, it is going back to an event whenever and keeping me safe. So in the moment, you're probably not stressed. When you're doing your painting, you're not stressed. But when you wake up in the morning, oh my God, I've got to do this. And this belief around, I've got to do it all. You know, we had a quick talk about that, but we've had quite a lot of talk about that in the last, but this belief that I've got to do the books, I've got to pay the mortgage, I've got to do the washing up, I've got to do the cooking, I've got to get this, I've got to do the invoicing. All of these beliefs around, I have to do everything. And my question to everybody is, just stop, just for 1 minute, and breathe, and really breathe slowly and deeply into your gut. And as you breathe out, that relief, and really question yourself, is this true? Byron Katie, the works, she's got a very, very simple exercise. Is this true? Do I have to do everything? Can somebody do your invoicing for you? You've got to do your quotes. You've got to go out and do your, you're going to go out, you're going to get the job, you've got to price the job. No one else is going to be able to do that. I certainly couldn't do that for you. But there are loads of people out there, and they're not that expensive. in the big picture, for you, for peace of mind that you've done your quote, they get them done and send them out to the client. They then invoice for the jobs, so they get the money in. There are people that is all they do, that is their businesses. So it's that give and take, isn't it? Russell Davis is a great one for advocating this. You know, the more I spent on my business, the more I got in. You know, and you know, you'd be helping another business by allowing somebody else, a VA who just does invoicing, give them, and it might cost you £50 a week, if that.
Yeah.
If that. To give yourself maybe an extra 3 or 4 hours a week and some time to spend with your family, with your wives, with your children, with your parents, grandparents, whoever you want to, or actually with, I've forgotten what its name is, with the muscle memory, but yeah, a bit more time down the pub.
Yeah.
Queen's Head, that was it. I'm trying to think of the Queen's Head in Lawn Lane. That's where I used to go. I was talking to somebody a couple of days ago. I was like, what was that pub I used to go? I was listening to Shalimar. I was going, it reminds me.
That's a rough old.
I know. Yeah, and it always was. But yeah, that's when I was 18, 19. Yeah, I used to go down the Queen's Head in Lawn Lane. Yeah, well, there you go. That's another story.
Yeah. So
good memories, but
just to summarize, Dawn, so feeling stressed and all the rest of it, one of the biggest I've got from you was just to really slow it all down, and whatever's going on in your head, you know, I like writing stuff down, doing a list, and, you know, asking yourself, what do you have to do it all? Or if you do, you know, what's the priority and what do you need to get done? And it's kind of like, sometimes when I'm painting, I can be like, oh, I've got to do a quote tonight, or do whatever in the group, and this, that, and the other. And it can, you know, it can stress me out a little bit, but it's just really your brain running away, isn't it? It's slowing it all down. And
I think the big question for me is, and I do ask, is that true, Dawn? Is that actually true? And quite often it's not. It's not true. It's a story I've told myself, and if I've told myself a story long enough, sometimes I believe it's true. But is it true? Because actually, you know, for me, I used to get really worried about every February, until I came across the principles. Actually, February, I broke down every February because I thought it's just a bad month for me. And I saw myself homeless every my dad was telling me that he was going to die. Well, yeah, that was the truth at some stage, but not when he telling me he was. He was perfectly fine. I'm going to die, Dawn. And I saw, you know, oh my God, he's not going to be there. Not that he ever had to pay my mortgage for me. He didn't, or ever had to, you know. And like I say, I've got a husband that, but no, I would, in my head, and that some of that is my upbringing, because I was raised, my mum left when I was 13, so I was raised in very much in a man's world. But I never lost my house. It wasn't true. I always got through to the end of February, and March it would all change and more work would come in. And it was like, okay, so you just have to be a bit more resourceful in January to keep the money aside for February, and then March it's going to pick up again. It's the joy of being self-employed. But you know, it was a story I told myself for many years, Kerry, that I was going to be homeless. But by February 28th, 29th, I was going to be on the streets in a tent. And you know, that's a whole month out of my life that I just made myself I put myself in a really shitty place, and probably wasn't very nice to others because of this stress. Because of this story, this anxious thinking. Yeah.
So essentially,
but is it true?
I reckon to summarize, most of the stuff in our head is just stories, and most of it's a load of crap.
Without being disrespectful to anybody else. Yeah.
But do you know what I mean? Like the majority of it, majority of stuff you worry about doesn't happen.
That's the
point I'm making. And it's like, it literally doesn't happen. But it's the worry, anticipation of what's coming up, which is the scary part.
Yeah, it is. Two things I'd recommend. I picked up this book. I've got one on loan. so I've always got two. Missing Link, Sydney Banks, really simple reading. Read it an hour, keep it on your bookshelf for a lifetime, and then I'll just open it now. Okay, so people often speculate how many components there are to a thought. There are no components to thought. Thought is a divine power. It is an element that can never be broken down into smaller segments. It is we human beings that use thought to produce such things as our feelings, moods, and our overall perceptions of life. Thought can be used in an infinite number of ways. There you go. I mean, it's a whole book of thought, mind, and consciousness. And another one is I listen to podcasts, but I listened to one called Psychology. I'll send it over to you, and it's up to you if you want to put that in there. But Psychology Has It Backwards, and it's two old ladies who have been psychologists for like donkey's years and actually sat with Sydney Banks. But I just love their podcast. You don't have to, get the principles. I just love listening. They're about 25 minutes. Yeah. And they're Judy Sedgman and Christine Heath, and they call it Psychology Has It Backwards. But they just talk about all of these things, and it's just a conversation. It's not conversation about mental well-being. It's not about mental ill health. It's about well-being, mental well-being, not mental ill health. And it's just changing the focus. We live in a world full of mental, or in Britain very much this mental. I have mental health. Well, do you know what? We all have freaking mental health. Yeah, we all have mental health, but how about we place our focus on I have mental well-being? Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. Susan saying, I'm Little Miss Worrier. Yeah, but Susan, where's that coming from? Was your mum or dad a worrier? Is it a belief about yourself that's probably not even true? What do you reckon, just to finalize on that one, Dawn? So Susan saying, I'm a Little Miss Worrier.
I think it's common, isn't it? It's so common. I overthink. I was talking to my husband the other day, and I was saying to him, he used to run from Tring to the other end of Berkhamsted. And I was saying to him, when you used to run, what was that feeling? I've asked a few people this. And what I expect them to say is their thinking slows down and stops. They're just free. They feel freedom. It wasn't. It was. He just said, I'm always thinking. This is the quietest man on the earth. Doesn't say a word normally. I'm always thinking. And do you know what? We're human beings. That's the gift of what we've got. We are always thinking. However, what was her name again? Sorry.
Susan.
Is it true? Is what you're worrying about, is it true? I'll look up the 4 questions that Byron Katie does. There really is there's a worksheet, and to work through them, and it's a lot of it. Is that actually true? Is it a truth? So whatever you're worrying about, could you give us an example of what you're worrying about, Susan? Just a quick one.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it would. Let's just see if she answers. If not, I reckon we'll call it a day, Dawn, because I don't want to take up any more of your evening.
No, I've eaten my dinner now. I was on at 6, remember?
Yeah. But no, I can't see any reply from Susan. But
so Susan, is it true? Whatever it is you're worrying about, is it true? And breathe. Just when you start worrying, stop and breathe. And women, and some men, but women are really good at shallow breathing. And it's that breathing. I'm going to stand. It's breathing down in here. We spend so much time trying to get, flat abs and being, the perfect shape, but actually our bodies work perfectly. And when we stop and breathe down into our belly and breathe out for longer than we breathed in, that automatically just slows down our thinking mind. Worry doesn't serve you.
quick one as well. Matt saying, I'm constantly worrying about my work's not good enough and customers will go mad. This is so common, Matt, honestly.
Oh,
So
so common.
But is it?
And I still do that, you know.
Yeah.
I'm human. I don't, Gary, I bet you do as well.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But when I cut someone's hair, I want them to be happy. I just want them to be happy. But is there a difference between worrying and actually just slowing down and saying, I just want the best for you. I want the best for my clients.
But often when I ask people, you know, like, you know, and I bet Matt will say as well, like, you know, has anyone ever complained, or, you know, generally are people happy with your work? Everyone always says yes. So that just goes back to a belief, you know, potentially about not being good enough at X, Y, Z, which is a belief installed from probably when you were younger. You weren't even aware of it, you know, and none of it's necessarily true, is it?
Probably before you even started school, to be honest.
Yeah.
You probably have a memory of school and saying, oh yeah, it's because the teacher did, but probably stems way back before that.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad was a perfectionist. In fact, where I trained in hairdressing in Birmingham, said he was a perfectionist. But what is it that I've attracted those people, and what lessons? You know, there's another way. You can always flip something. What lessons have I gained from that? But my dad was, nothing was ever good enough. Nothing. I cooked dinner. That was lovely, love, but potatoes could have done with a bit longer. The meat, it was a bit overdone, or, you know, every freaking Sunday. Yeah, that was a lovely meal, love, but there's always a but.
And then that could have installed, like you say, that's just little bits like that, installing beliefs of you being not good enough.
I'm not good enough.
Then you kind of put it over your whole life, and not just actually your dad was being awkward,
loving. Yeah, he just, you know, instead of taking that as feedback, it's just feedback, isn't it? It's just feedback. Was it? But yeah, my dad loved me.
Yeah.
I'm sure, you know, wherever he is in the universe, I'm sure he's still with me and loving me. However, that's my belief and my stuff.
Susan just said here, you know, Susan, about being a worrier, and she said, my primary teacher said I'll do nothing in life, and then yet I've decorated her house. So, you know,
awesome. High five
Susan,
to you, Susan.
Charged a frigging double for that, you know. But that's just something like that, you know, primary, before the age of, you know, 6 or whatever, you know, that installment, that belief, you know, that creates your identity as an adult, you know, and you put it into, it's like a cobweb, isn't it? Suddenly it creates other webs, and you attach it to different stuff. And it's all a load of rubbish, you know.
None of it. You know, all of you out there are whole, perfect and wonderful, and you all deserve to be happy. You all deserve well-being, and you are, every single one of you, good enough. And I would ask you to get a post-it note. I've got some here. I share with you all. A post-it note. Get different colours. Put them on. There you go. And just stick, you know, I am good enough, I am deserving, you know, I'm deserving, I'm not deserving, and I'm not good enough are two, probably, I don't know how you feel about that, Gary, but probably the two of the biggest things that come up with most clients underneath, or just conversations with friends.
Feeling of
not
being loved and not being good enough, you know, that kind of feeling.
Mine was I'm a bad person, I'm not deserving was one of mine. But you are good enough. So actually switch that and put it on a post-it, stick them all around your house. I am good enough, I am deserving, I am lovable, I am loved, because you are. We are all loved.
Just quickly, Matt was saying nobody's complained, you know, which I said. So far, touch wood, I've been doing it a year now, still learning. But it's not the best. You might be the best, mate, for you know. I had problems during COVID and a career change. Stuff that other trades get away with is unbelievable. Trouble is, you get a lot of trades in our group. Plasterers are the worst. They just don't give a shit.
Really?
You know, like, leave such a mess. But again, it is stressful. But then we've got to reframe it a different way, and we've got to be the person in authority when we go to a job and say, look, it's not up to standard, point out what's going wrong, here's what it's going to cost to rectify it. So then that alleviates the stress, you know.
Mhm.
To me, if their customer's not willing to pay for it or get some compensation off the plasterer, then, you know, I just walk, you know. And I know that you can't do that all the time, but you just got to be the person in authority. What else to finish off on?
Sometimes
Jen,
walking will get you more money and more work,
yeah,
or less work at a higher rate.
yeah. So Jen's saying it wasn't really her dad, but her ex-partner dragged her down, made her feel yeah, not good enough, you know that. So I'm just scanning messages. So yeah, they can. Christ, yeah, you know, often, Christ, we could talk for hours, but
We
you
could,
know,
because I was going to go into past life regression with,
oh yeah.
So you've attracted this person into your life. What is it that's attracted to? And this is where PLR, past life regression, is excellent.
But then I can say, you know, the person that's putting you down, you know, someone always says to me, is if there's one finger pointing forward, how many are pointing back at that particular person? You know, so if anyone gives you grief, just listen to what they're saying, and it's a self-reflection of how they're feeling about themselves, which is probably a belief from their mum and their granddad. And
yeah, I'm not good enough, so I need to make you feel small to make me feel good.
Exactly right.
It's a behavior, and again, take behavior out, we're all whole and perfect. We all have bad behaviors.
Kevin was saying about a French teacher called him an embarrassment to his family because of a stutter and couldn't pronounce certain stuff in French. I can't even talk now, mate. So first year in secondary school, you know. So yeah, Kevin, shit like that can stick with us. You know, a lot of stuff from school does stick with us as adults, for sure. And often.
And has he ever needed to speak French?
Exactly. But often, you know, again, certain the way we are and like the identity we feel we've got, like I say, it's created from our past, and it's not even blimmin' true, you know. Just like you said, you know, to me, like I say, I could talk for hours, but to summarize, when you're born, you're a blank canvas, aren't you? You know,
perfect and whole.
Perfect. Yes, it's imprinted on you from your peers, family, friends, all the rest of it. So it's up to you as an adult to decide what's actually true, when probably not a lot of it is.
Yeah, a lot of it isn't.
Right. So yeah, I believe we've covered everything. I appreciate
how many
listening.
times are we going to summarize?
I know.
Summarize. Yeah, I think we do.
Last time we spoke for about 2 hours. I was on my break at work and I was like, oh shit, I better get back to painting.
Well, you had to, because your phone actually got so hot.
Actually, it did,
went, it was about to go. Yeah, it's like,
yeah. No, appreciate people watching.
And me too. Thank you for inviting me. No. Thank you to the people who have participated and asked questions or fed back. Conversation, I always say, conversation is absolutely free. A question is free.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's and I'm sure you do the same. You know, sometimes just a conversation can just help us to get a different perspective and experience of things that are not going well.
It goes without saying, you know, like I appreciate, you know, the guest speakers coming on. You don't charge me for it. It's just for us. It's something I really want to do. Obviously, people can contact you should they wish. No problem. I'm going to do past life regression with you. So I've always fancied it. But yeah, nice to see you.
And you too.
Have a good evening, everyone. You take care, yeah?
God bless.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.